have done the discussion about the supervised classification, and you have learned about the different techniques about supervised classification. So as all of you know, there are three basic steps when we carry out the supervised classification. First one is the training, second one is the classification, and third one is the output. So there are three stages. We have learned about how to take the sample, how to carry out the training operation, because whole soul accuracy of supervised classification lies on the training samples. It is very, very important part. So the very first and the most important step is the training stage, where the samples of different regions are given, different classes, LULC classes are given. Thereafter, we have to perform the classification, and we have learned about the different classifiers, which were parallelepiped classifier, minimum distance to mean classifier. Then there was Gaussian maximum likelihood classifier. So this was all about the supervised classification that we have learned in the previous term. In today's term, we are going to start with the unsupervised classification. So before I start the unsupervised classification, I am giving you 10 minutes task. Go to the book, Lillison Kiffer or Paul Mather's book, whichever you are following, and search about, first write it down, unsupervised classification, unsupervised classification. Second, ISO data, ISO, iterative self-organizing, ISO. Second is ISO data, ISO data method, and third one is k-means clustering method. So what you need to do, you need to search what is unsupervised classification, then you have to search about how to carry out the unsupervised classification using the ISO data method, and third one is how to carry out this unsupervised classification using k-means clustering. Okay, so just 10 minutes time, quickly find out what is the meaning of all these terms. Okay, first one is unsupervised classification, second one is ISO data, and third thing is k-means clustering. K for Kolkata, K means clustering. Yes, Sabyasachi, have you joined the class? Sabyasachi, please unmute yourself. Sabyasachi, are you able to listen me? Yes, Sabyasachi, please unmute yourself. Are you able to listen me? Okay, so let's see the solution of this question. What is unsupervised classification? I hope all of you have gone through the books about what is the unsupervised classification and got some idea about the unsupervised classification. Okay, so first I am demonstrating the unsupervised classification on the ADAS software, and thereafter we will discuss about it. In the previous turn, my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Yes, Sabyasachi, do you want to say something? Because I'm trying to contact with you, but you are not responding to me. Sabyasachi, अगर आपके पास मेरा ऑडियो जा रहा है, अगर आपको स्क्रीन विजिबल है, तो अनम्यूट करिए अपने आप को. ओके, एनी हाउ मुझे लग रहा है आपके एंड पे कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है, तो अगर आपको कोई भी दिक्कत हो साबित इन दैट केस आप चैट बॉक्स पर अपना प्रॉब्लम शेयर कर लीजिएगा. Okay, so let's see. So in the previous lectures, you have seen how the supervised classification has been carried out. Like this one is the Sentinel 2B image of Prayagraj. Okay, this one is the satellite image. This one is the satellite image. The resolution of this image was 10 meter. Why? Because we have taken just only the 4 bands, which is red, green, blue, and near infrared. So these 4 bands have been considered, and the resolution of this image was 10 meter. And you have seen how the supervised classification has been carried out. So when we were doing the supervised classification, what I have done, I have first used the signature editor from here. Okay, I have first taken the signature editor, and in the signature editor, what I have done, I have taken the polygons. Okay, like I have created the polygons. Like suppose if I want to give the vegetation, I have taken the vegetated area, and then I have collected a sample like this way, like this. So this is how a sample has been collected, and in the similar way, all the classes are identified on the image scene, and thereafter the classification is carried out. It means the first step was sampling, and once the sampling is done, the classification has been performed. So here human intelligence is involved because the sample are need to be given. The analyst need to be well aware from the image seen from the study area. Only then he or she can get the appropriate samples of the study area. For that purpose, we need either we are very well aware of our region, otherwise we will take the help of topographic maps, we take the help of Google Earth, we take the help of field survey, we take the help of some reports, even text reports, textual report are even helpful for this purpose, so that the analyst will get aware about the image scene or the study area. Now, when we carry out the unsupervised classification, we do not need to give any type of samples over here. No sampling is needed in unsupervised classification. How unsupervised classification is carried out? In this one, the analyst just has to give the number of classes, okay, based upon the spectral appearance, based upon the spectral nature, the clusters are formed. Okay, the clusters are formed in the unsupervised classification, and the classification is carried out. Thereafter, once the classification is done, in the last step, labeling has to be done. What is the meaning of all these things? I will show you on the software. Like I want to carry out the unsupervised classification. See how it is different from the supervised. I am selecting unsupervised classification from here. Raster, input raster file. So I am giving the I'm giving my file Sentinel-2V Prayagraj city. Okay. And I'm saving my output cluster layer, which is the supervised classification layer. So I'm giving it LULC unsupervised. Now here, I just need to give the number of classes. So how many classes we have identified earlier in the Prayagraj city? Anyone?
5.
Yeah, 5. So we have identified 5 classes. The rest of the things we will discuss it later on. Maximum iteration 6, convergence threshold 0.95. If you have gone through the ISO data method, in ISO data method, this all specifications are given. So I'm not going into this one right now. I will cover this one later. But here just see, I'm giving the input, I'm giving the output, and I'm selecting the number of classes. So as an analyst, I'm giving just only the number of classes as an input over here. And clicking OK. See, the iterations are going on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 iteration, it's done. Okay. Now let's see what is the output. When I'm opening the output, LULC unsupervised, see, this is how the output is coming up over here. This is how the output, this grayscale image is coming as an output. Now, here comes the role of the analyst. How? I need to label all the classes. If you see in this one, in the raster attribute, they are simply identifying the class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class 5. That's it. How these classes have been performed based on the spectral clustering, these 5 classes have been identified on the image. Now, here the analyst has to identify what is the meaning of class 1, what is the meaning of class 2, what is the meaning of 3, 4, 5. So from the color, like suppose I'm giving one as a blue color. So yes, obviously class 1 is a water. As you can see on the screen, when I'm giving it a blue color, it is giving me the whole river area. So for me, the class 1 is water. Okay. Now coming to the second class. Second one is probably a built up area. Yeah. So second one is the built up area, as you can see it over here. I'm giving it a value of built up. Then third, next one is probably the vegetation area. So vegetation is given by yellow. Yeah.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, after the confluence of Ganga and Yamuna, how they can be built up area in between the two streams?
Yes. Next one is the vegetation. Thereafter, the next one is probably the open land. I'm giving it by tan color. And the last one is the sandy region, which comes under the barren land. Barren is given by the magenta color. So this is how the supervised classification is carried out. The classification takes place based upon the natural grouping. Based upon the natural grouping. So here you can see the output is very much similar to the image. Okay. Now there is a question that at this place where I have placed my cursor at this position, there cannot be the this urban area or built up area cannot be at this position, and even from the image also you can see at this place this one is not an built up area, this might be some open ground area. So yes, when we carry out the classification, such type of mistakes happens because it is collecting the data based upon the natural grouping. Okay, so this is how it creates a problem, and later on by using the uh, spo- uh, recoding and such type of tools, we carry out the corrections over here. At these places, like this place, there is a mistake. Okay, so what is required over here? There is a need of conversion. So there are the tools and softwares. Okay, like I will show you. So what I will do, I'm selecting this portion, and what I want to do, I want to convert this built up class number 2 into open LAN, which is class number 4. Okay. So this is how we need to make corrections. Whether we are doing the supervised classification or unsupervised classification, practically the output is never 100% correct. When we carry out the classification, we need to make some such type of amendment. Manually, we need to do the corrections in the output. So yes, these things are involved, but
Ma'am,
somehow the overall classification process is like this way. So as we have seen in the unsupervised classification, just the number of classes have been mentioned and the classification is carried out, which is followed by an additional step. That step was not there in the supervised classification. It is a new step over here. There is an additional step of class labeling. The classes have been identified by using the clustering method. The natural grouping of the classes have been taken place. Now we have to identify what is the meaning of class 1, what is the meaning of class 2, what is the meaning of class 3. Earlier, when I was doing the supervised classification, I have done this training, but once the classification was carried out, the output was like if I open my output, this one was my output, although it was not properly classified. But if you remember that when the classification has been carried out, it was automatically labeled. If I open the attribute table, see, the labeling is already present. The classes are already present. I hope it is clear to everyone what is the meaning of supervised classification and what is the meaning of unsupervised classification. So the basic difference that I want to show you is how it is carried out. Unsupervised usually is considered to be simpler than the unsupervised is considered to be simpler than the supervised classification because it does not have training stage. It is much more easier because the analyst doesn't need to give the number, does not need to give the training samples in the unsupervised classification. Okay, so let's see what is unsupervised classification. This one. So unsupervised classification can be defined as the identification of natural groups within multispectral data. Algorithm examine the unknown pixels in an image and aggregate them into a number of classes based on the natural groupings or clusters present in the image values. The basic concept is that values within a given cover type should be close, whereas data in different classes should be comparatively well separated. The classes that result from unsupervised classification are spectral classes because they are based solely on the natural grouping in the image values. The identity of the spectral classes will not be initially known. The analyst must compare the classified data with some form of reference data to determine the identity and information value of the spectral classes. So we have already performed all these things, so it should be clear to everyone that how the supervised classification has been carried out. There is a problem like the problem that you have just seen over here. Okay, like this particular area matches with the like this area as compared to the basically it is an open land and it might have some sand over there also. So it is comparatively brighter than the other places open land because it is falling within the between the river area. Okay, there is a small island like area over here, and that's why when something is falls between two river streams, in that case automatically that area must have a lot of sand over there. It doesn't carry the completely sandy area. It will have an open area with some scattered sand over there. So that's why it was not classifying into the barren area. As you can see it over here, the barren area which was falling at this place, I will open the image. Yeah, as you can see this place, the sandy area which was classified as the barren in this LUSC, you can see the appearance of that one over here. It is coming in a very bright shade. But if you see this portion, see this portion is not that much bright. So obviously it is not a sand. Then if you see the open land as compared to the open land, it is much more brighter. Its signature, even if you see this one and compare it with the urbanized area, with this built up, completely built up area, if you compare them, they are appearing same, but they are not same. So it is probably, if I open the Google Earth, okay. Just wait for a minute. Because whenever there is such type of confusion, like what is present over there, it is logically, it is not coming correct. So in such type of cases, we used to open the Google Earth. Okay. And thereafter, we will check it what is there. So this was our study area, isn't it? There is, okay, between these two water streams, you can find this area. See this area. This one is an open land with some vegetated area. See. This is not an urban area. As you can see it over here, it is basically a little bit marshy area, open area, a lot of vegetation is present over here. So that's why it is appearing different. There is another spot over here. Like again. See this place. See this circular area and compare it from this one. This portion. Hope all of you are able to identify this thing. See this one. This is categorizing at built up area along with the water and see it on the Google Earth. What is there? This is a built up area along with a lot of vegetation. Are you getting it? And see the output. See the output. So such type of problems always are there when we doing the classification. And what we need to do, we need to make the necessary corrections once the output is obtained. See, so whatever classification I'm doing, whether it is supervised, whether it is unsupervised, in both the cases, this whole region got classified as completely built up area. But in reality, when I'm opening it on the Google Earth, I'm getting that it is a combination of built up along with the vegetated area. So later on, we need to make such type of correction at all these places. Okay. So the classification is not that much simple as it appears, that you just need to give the number of classes and that's it. No, it has a lot of after means post processing. We have to do a lot of work to make the necessary correction in the data set. When we visualize the output of the classification, it will appear like, outside the city area, like within the Ganga Yamuna region, this whole Allahabad city, this Prayagraj city is set up. So if outside the city, if I am getting this much dense built up area, it means there must be something, there may be something wrong over here. Between two streams of water, if there is completely built up area which was coming over here, it means there might be some mistake over there. So this is how we identify what type of mistakes are present, how to make the correction on that one. Okay. So this is about the unsupervised classification where classes are identified based upon the natural grouping. Many times what happen, instead of taking, just like in this case, I have taken 5 classes. I may have taken suppose 10 classes, and thereafter I can carry out the merge operation, merge the different classes together. So this also takes place. Okay. Now, next part is clustering. K means clustering, but before coming to that one, is supervised classification is clear to everyone? Is it clear to everyone? Any confusion regarding the unsupervised? Yes. Yes, Sumit. No question. Okay. So this is how the unsupervised is carried out. Now we are coming to the different methods through which unsupervised classification could take place. In this one, we will learn 2 methods. First one is K-means clustering and second one is ISO data. Coming to the first one, which is K-means clustering. So in the first step of the algorithm, an initial vector, or you can say initial mean position, is arbitrarily specified for each of K clusters. Each pixel of the training set is then assigned to the class whose mean vector is closest to the pixel vector, thus forming the first set of decision boundaries. A new set of cluster mean vectors is then calculated from this classification and the pixels are reassigned accordingly. In each iteration, the k-means will tend to shift toward concentration of data within their current assigned region of feature space. Their procedure continues until there is no significant change in the location of class mean vectors between successive iteration of the algorithm. Once this point is reached, the analyst determines the land cover identity of each spectral class. What is the meaning of all these things? So let's understand this whole thing with the help of an example. It is a very simple process. When we carry out the k-means clustering, okay, what is k? Here, k means number of classes. Like I have given 5. So in this one, first of all, 5 different location will be marked randomly. When the step 1, 5 position, or in this example, 2 positions are marked randomly over here. Thereafter, based upon the minimum distance to mean, the classifier that we have learned in the previous term, here the cluster is formed. How the cluster is formed? Based upon the minimum distance to mean. The mean position is marked randomly in the first step. Okay. The mean position is marked, as you can see over here. The A, random selection of K centers. Okay. Randomly, some centers are selected at this position and at this position randomly. Thereafter, the cluster is formed. How this cluster is formed? Yes, how this cluster is formed? Based upon the minimum distance to mean. The distance of rest of the pixels will be calculated and those who have the minimum distance from this or this, it will be assigned the cluster according to that one based upon the distance from the mean position. So here in the B step of iteration 1, you can see the clusters are assigned. And finally, in the iteration 1, in the last step, again, the mean position of these clusters are identified. So when you recompute the mean position, obviously the mean will get shifted from to another location, as you can see over here. The iteration 1 is completed, and same thing will be performed repeatedly. So in iteration 2, next step is again same cluster assignment and recompute centroid. Iteration 3, cluster assignment, recompute centroid. So this is how the k-means algorithm, k-means clustering algorithm works. Is it clear to everyone?
मैम एक बार थोड़ा सा और बता दीजिए मैम।
अच्छा, के मीन्स क्लस्टरिंग में क्या होता है, जैसे नाम से आपको समझ में आ रहा है, के सबसे पहले तो क्वेश्चन के क्या होता है बताइए, क्या क्या है यहाँ पे?
क्लासेस।
हाँ, नंबर ऑफ क्लासेस जो है वो के होता है। यहाँ पर इस एग्जांपल में जैसे दिया जा रहा है, इसमें के की वैल्यू 2 है, तो यहाँ पर 2 क्लासेस हैं। जब प्रोसीजर स्टार्ट होता है, जब फर्स्ट इटरेशन होता है, जब सबसे पहले चलना शुरू होता है, तो क्या होता है, अभी मीन पोजीशन तो कोई कैलकुलेटेड होती नहीं है, इस कारण से रैंडमली कहीं पे भी 2 पोजीशंस को मार्क कर दिया गया। जैसे आप यहाँ पर फिगर ए में देख रहे हो, रैंडमली किन्हीं 2 पोजीशन पे इनको मार्क कर दिया गया। रैंडम का मतलब कहीं पर भी, है ना, जो रैंडमली इसमें कहीं पे भी 2 लोकेशन ले ली गई। जितने के की जो भी वैल्यू होगी, 5 होगी तो 5 अलग अलग पोजीशन मार्क होगी। यहाँ पर के की वैल्यू 2 है तो यहाँ पर 2 अलग अलग पोजीशन को मार्क कर दिया गया। मार्क करने के बाद अब अगला काम क्या करेंगे, अगला काम करेंगे क्लस्टर बनाने का। ठीक, क्लस्टर कैसे बनाएंगे बताइए आप, क्लस्टर को कैसे बनाएंगे?
मैम मीन पोजीशन से जो मिनिमम डिस्टेंस पे होगा मैम।
हाँ, यहाँ पर जितने भी यहाँ पर आपको पिक्सेल्स, यहाँ पर ये जो सैंपल्स दिख रहे हैं, इन सब की यहाँ पर जो 2 पोजीशंस मार्क हुई हैं, ठीक है, यहाँ पर ये 2 पोजीशंस को मार्क किया गया है। इन पोजीशन से इन सभी पॉइंट्स की दूरी नापेंगे, ठीक है, इससे मेजर किया, इससे मेजर किया, इससे किया, इससे किया, इससे किया, तो इन दोनों रेड सर्कल्स जो यहाँ पर बनाए गए हैं, वहां से सारे पॉइंट्स की डिस्टेंस को मेजर किया गया। अब जिनके साथ में इनकी दूरी कम होगी, उस क्लस्टर को इसको असाइन कर दिया जाएगा। सपोज ये क्लस्टर 1 है और ये बड़ा वाला क्लस्टर 2 है, तो यहाँ क्लस्टर 1 के मीन से जिसकी सबसे कम दूरी होगी वो क्लस्टर 1 में आ जाएंगे ऐसे, और जिनकी क्लस्टर मतलब मीन 2 के साथ में कम से मिनिमम डिस्टेंस होगा, उन्हें क्लस्टर 2 पे असाइन कर दिया जाएगा। इतना करने के बाद में आप देखेंगे कि यहाँ पर 2 क्लस्टर्स बनते हुए आपको मिल रहे हैं। ये जो क्लस्टर अभी अभी फॉर्म हुए, इनका मीन वैल्यू फिर से लिया जाएगा। यहाँ पर 1 2 3 4 5 5 यहाँ पर अलग अलग वैल्यूज हैं, और यहाँ पर 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9। सो यहाँ 5 वैल्यूज और 9 वैल्यूज को लेकर के उनकी मीन वैल्यू कैलकुलेट करी जाएगी, और मीन जैसे ही मिलेगा तो ऑब्वियसली जो ओरिजिनल हमने रैंडमली लिया हुआ था वो वहां की बजाय किसी और जगह पर चले जाएंगे। वही होता हुआ आपको स्टेप सी में दिख रहा है कि यहाँ पर ओरिजिनल पोजीशन से शिफ्ट होकर के एक नए पोजीशन पे चलेगा। ये नया पोजीशन कैसे हमको मिला, इन क्लस्टर्स का मीन कैलकुलेट करके मिला। यहाँ पर फर्स्ट इटरेशन कंप्लीट होता है। अगले इटरेशन में अब हम क्या करेंगे, अब यही काम हम फिर से दोहराएंगे। क्या दोहराएंगे, ये 2 नए मीन आपको मिल गए, इन दोनों मीन से सभी पॉइंट्स की दूरी नापेंगे। अब आप देखें जैसे ये वाला पॉइंट है, ठीक है, जहां पर अभी यहाँ पर देखिए ये पॉइंट हमने लिया, इस पॉइंट का इस मीन से ज्यादा मतलब क्लस्टर 2 के मीन से ज्यादा डिस्टेंस है कि क्लस्टर 1 के?
मैम क्लस्टर 1 से।
तो ऑब्वियसली क्लस्टर 1 से इसका दूरी कम है, तो इसको क्लस्टर 1 पे असाइन हो जाएगा। इसी तरीके से आप दूसरे को भी देखेंगे तो ये प्रोबेबली क्लस्टर 1 से ज्यादा नजदीक है। अब क्या होगा, इसके बेसिस पर फिर से क्लस्टर इसी तरीके से दूरी मेजर करते हुए नापा गया, और ये देखिए इटरेशन 2 में फिर से क्लस्टर का असाइनमेंट किया गया। अब सेम प्रोसेस, यहाँ पर क्लस्टर मिल गया, क्लस्टर का मीन फिर से कैलकुलेट किया गया। आ गया तो अगले स्टेप में फिर वही काम, इन क्लस्टर मीन से दूरी नापेंगे और फिर से नया क्लस्टर फॉर्म करेंगे। तो ये काम कब तक होगा? ये काम बार बार होता है, आइट्रेटिव। इसीलिए जो अनसुपरवाइज्ड क्लासिफिकेशन है वो पूरा आइट्रेटिव होता है, बार बार एक ही काम को दोहराया जाना। ये इसका मतलब होता है, इटरेशन का मतलब क्या है? एक ही काम को आप बार बार दोहराते हैं। जैसे आपने जावास्क्रिप्ट में अभी लूप बनाना सीखा था लैबोरेटरी सेशन में। सो लूप क्या था? इट वाज एन आइट्रेटिव प्रोसेस की एक ही काम को आप दोहरा रहे हो बार बार। यहाँ पे भी क्या होगा, यही काम बार बार चलता रहेगा। कब तक चलता रहेगा? कुछ हमें कंडीशन लगानी पड़ेगी तभी तो वो रुकेगा, अदरवाइज सेम प्रॉब्लम इनफाइनाइट हो जाएगा, चलती ही रहेगी प्रोसेस। इसको रोकने के तरीके क्या होते हैं? एक जैसा आइडियल केस बोल दिया जाए कि मीन शिफ्ट ही ना हो कभी, है ना। अगर नो शिफ्ट है, अगर मीन कैलकुलेट हो रहा है और प्रीवियस मीन और रिकम्प्यूटेड मीन जो है वो सेम पोजीशन पे आ रहा है, इन दैट केस क्या होगा? स्टॉप होने की कंडीशन है। बट कई बार ऐसा देखा जाता है कि मीन कभी भी सेम नहीं आता और वो बार बार अपनी पोजीशन चेंज करता रहता है। तो इस कारण से ज्यादातर क्या होता है, थ्रेशोल्ड वैल्यू लगा दी जाती है कि इस थ्रेशोल्ड से कम अगर डिस्प्लेसमेंट हो रहा है मीन का, तो हम मान लेंगे कि क्लस्टर अब स्टेबल हो गए हैं, क्लस्टर फॉर्मेशन हो गया है और प्रोसेस यहीं पर एंड होनी है। ठीक है, तो ये के मीन्स क्लस्टरिंग इस तरीके से बार बार होकर के चलती रहती है, और यही चीज इसमें थ्योरी में भी बताई गई है।
मैम,
यस,
minimum distance to mean and k-mean clustering both are same.
सिमिलर नॉट सेम।
So minimum distance to mean is supervised or unsupervised?
मैं इसको एक्सप्लेन कर दे रही हूँ थोड़ा सा शब्दों में, और प्रोसेस को देख करके सिमिलैरिटी लग रही है।
Yes, ma'am.
एक जैसे है लेकिन एक नहीं है। क्या अंतर है? पहले के मीन्स क्लस्टरिंग हम कवर करते हैं, फिर इसका डिफरेंस समझाते हैं।
Yes, okay, ma'am.
इसको पहले आप लोग अपने एंड से अब अपने से रीड करिए, पूरा प्रोसेस हमने समझा दिया है। इसको एक बार फिर से के मीन क्लस्टरिंग अपने आप से पढ़िए। Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
इसको डिफरेंस पूछा जा रहा है। के मीन सबको क्लियर हो गया होगा। के मीन क्लस्टरिंग एंड सेकेंड है जो हम लोग ने सुपरवाइज क्लासिफिकेशन में पढ़ा था, सेंट्रॉइड क्लासिफायर और के मीन्स क्लासिफायर और मिनिमम डिस्टेंस टू मीन क्लासिफायर। इसमें भी काम वैसे ही चलता है। अंतर क्या है यहाँ पे जो मीन निकाला जाता है, यहाँ पर जो ट्रेनिंग सैंपल आप देते हैं, अर्बन का, सैंड का, वाटर, कॉर्न, हे, फॉरेस्ट, या अलग अलग 6 डिफरेंट LULC क्लासेस हैं जो यहाँ पर जिनकी ट्रेनिंग दी गई है। तो जब हम के मीन्स क्लासिफिकेशन करते हैं, देखिए शब्दों में अंतर, देखिए के मीन्स क्लस्टरिंग यहाँ पर यूज नहीं हो रहा है क्योंकि यहाँ क्लस्टरिंग नहीं करी जा रही है। यहाँ के मीन्स क्लासिफिकेशन बोला जा रहा है। अंतर ध्यान रखिएगा। जब हम क्लस्टरिंग बोलते हैं वैसे ही वो अनसुपरवाइज्ड आ जाता है, और जब हम सिंपल के मीन्स क्लासिफिकेशन बोलते हैं तो वो सुपरवाइज्ड क्लासिफिकेशन होता है। यहाँ पर अंतर क्या है, यहाँ पर भी वही काम हो रहा है। मीन लेकर के जो क्लास असाइन करी जा रही है वो मीन के बेसिस पर, मीन पोजीशन से कितना डिस्टेंस है उसके बेसिस पर असाइन करी जा रही है। जैसे थोड़ा बड़ा करके देखते हैं, जैसे 0.1 है, हमें अगर इसको कोई क्लास असाइन करना है तो कैसे असाइन करेंगे? इसके सारे 6 जो यहाँ पर अलग अलग 6 डिफरेंट क्लासेस लिए गए हैं, उनके मीन पोजीशंस जो हैं, 6 मीन पोजीशन होंगी। 6 क्लास है तो 6 मीन पोजीशन होंगी। उन सभी से डिस्टेंस मेजर किया जाता है और जिसके साथ में सबसे कम दूरी होती है उसको वो क्लास असाइन कर दिया जाता है। जैसे 1 जो है वो कॉर्न के सबसे नजदीक है, इस कारण से उसको कॉर्न पर असाइन कर दिया जाएगा। इसी तरीके से 2 जो है वो सैंड से शायद सबसे नजदीक होगा तो वो सैंड को असाइन हो जाएगा। यहाँ पर जो के मीन्स क्लस्टरिंग में हम लोग कर रहे थे कि यहाँ पर वहां पर कोई इस तरीके से सैंपल नहीं रहेंगे, वहां पर सारे पिक्सल वैल्यूज रहेंगे। वहां पर क्लस्टरिंग कर दी जाएगी, रैंडमली 6 ले लिया जाएगा, 6 अलग अलग पोजीशन रैंडमली मार्क कर दी जाएगी और फिर उसके बेसिस पर बार बार क्लस्टर बना करके उसका मीन निकालते जाएंगे जब तक कि मीन शिफ्ट ना हो। जो प्रोसेस अभी हमने पूरा डिटेल में डिस्क्राइब किया। जब हम के मीन्स क्लासिफिकेशन करते हैं, जब सुपरवाइज क्लासिफिकेशन करते हैं तो वहां पर मीन केवल एक बार निकलता है क्योंकि हमारे पास में ट्रेनिंग सैंपल ऑलरेडी रहते हैं। हर एक क्लास का ट्रेनिंग सैंपल रहता है तो उस क्लास का मीन पोजीशन निकाल लिया और फिर उस मीन पोजीशन से जो भी पिक्सल है जिसको हमें क्लासिफाई करना है उससे दूरी देख करके असाइन कर दिया जाता है। इसीलिए यहाँ पर इस तरीके का आपको एक 2 डायमेंशनल पार्टीशन स्पेस दिखाया गया था कि किस तरीके से अलग अलग यहाँ पर जो मीन निकला उसके बेसिस पर ही पार्टीशनिंग कर दी गई है ना। तो यहाँ पर इस तरीके से 6 पार्टीशंस बना दिए गए। जबकि जब हम के मीन्स क्लस्टरिंग करते हैं तो वहां पर मीन कैलकुलेशन ही सबसे बड़ा काम होता है कि वहां पर आइटरेटिवली मीन्स को कंप्यूट किया जाता है। हर एक क्लस्टर के लिए तब तक करा जाता है जब तक जो डिस्प्लेसमेंट है मीन का वो ज्यादा ना रह जाए या नेग्लिजिबल हो जाए या थ्रेशोल्ड से कम हो जाए। ठीक है, डिफरेंस समझ में आ गया अब आपको? के मींस क्लासिफिकेशन एंड के मींस क्लस्टरिंग में। क्लियर है दोनों के बीच का अंतर?
Yes, ma'am.
ओके, नेक्स्ट आते हैं आईएसओ डेटा। आईएसओ डेटा से जुड़ा हुआ एक डिटेल, एक बुक का एक पोर्शन था, तो मैंने यहाँ पर आईएसओ डेटा पीडीएफ एक यहाँ पर अपलोड कर दिया है। इसमें आईएसओ डेटा का डिटेल दिया हुआ है, बाकी बुक्स में इतना डिटेल आपको नहीं मिलेगा। चलिए देखते हैं आईएसओ डेटा क्या होता है, इसके बारे में क्या लिखा है यहाँ पे। फर्स्ट थिंग, it stands for iterative self-organizing data analysis. Note down. It stands for iterative self-organizing data analysis. Okay. Now, when we carry out the unsupervised classification by this method, it is based upon two assumptions. These assumptions are based upon the clusters. First one is clusters should be compact in nature. How a compact cluster will appear? How a compact cluster will appear? Like, okay, which one is more compact? These clusters are more compact or these clusters?
Ma'am, I think third one.
In A, B, C, D, B is more compact or D is more compact?
Ma'am, D.
D, ma'am.
Okay, so what is the basis of this answer? Why D is more compact?
Ma'am, voids are less than A.
किस बेसिस पर कह रहे हैं कि D ज्यादा कॉम्पैक्ट है B से? आंसर सही है, D ही ज्यादा है। हाँ बताइए।
मैम voids कम है उसमें B में, सॉरी D में।
रिपीट करिए आंसर।
मैम voids कम है D में।
मैम सेंटर से मिनिमम डिस्टेंस मैम मीन पोजीशन से।
यस, मीन पोजीशन जो होती है वो क्लस्टर सेंटर से आती है। एंड सी द डिफरेंस। जैसे यहाँ क्लस्टर 4 को देखिए, पहले बार फिगर बी क्लस्टर 4, उसका साइज देखिए एंड डेविएशन फ्रॉम द मीन देखिए। यहाँ पर वही चीज देखिए, चाहे क्लस्टर 4 देखिए चाहे इस क्लस्टर को देखिए। सो अगर सर्कुलर होता है, सर्कल के शेप में होता है क्लस्टर, देन इट इज मोर कॉम्पैक्ट एज कंपेयर टू सच टाइप ऑफ elongated clusters. Why? Because the distance from the mean, ना ये रेड कलर से क्या है, मीन पोजीशन है। So the displacement from the mean is more in such type of elongated clusters as given in figure B. Okay, so first thing is cluster present in the data are compact. Second thing is cluster are well separated. What is the meaning of well separated? Again, well separated means the distance from the mean, okay, the distance between these mean positions should be large. If they are located very close to each other, in that case, there is a chances of overlapping, that those two clusters are not independent classes. They may be the same classes if they are located very much nearby. So When we see the second part, that the clusters are well separated, this well separation is assessed by the difference or the distance between the mean positions. Okay. So clusters present in the data are compact. That is, the point associated with each cluster are tightly grouped together around the cluster center and thus occupy a spheroidal region of feature space. A measure of the compactness of a cluster can be taken as the set of standard deviations for the cluster measured separately for each feature. If any of these feature standard deviations for a particular cluster is larger than a user specified value, then the cluster is considered to be elongated in the direction of the axis representing that feature. Clusters are well separated. Their inter-center distances are greater than a pre-selected threshold. If the feature space coordinates of a trial number of cluster centers are randomly generated, then the closest distance to center. This algorithm permits the number of clusters to change from one iteration to the next by merging, splitting, and deleting clusters. The general process follows that for the k-means clustering. However, in each iteration following the assignment of pixel to the cluster, the statistics describing each clusters are evaluated. If distance between mean points of two clusters is less than some predefined minimum distance, the two clusters are merged together. If a single cluster has a standard deviation that is greater than a predefined maximum value, the cluster is split into two. Clusters with fewer than the specified minimum number of pixels are deleted. Finally, as with k-means, all pixels are then reclassified to revised set of clusters, and the process repeats until there is no significant change in the cluster statistics and some maximum number of iteration is reached. So what is the meaning of this whole theory? See. So this one is band 3, band 4, mu for mean, sigma for standard deviation. Okay. So this is how the very first step starts. First of all, randomly, just like the k-means clustering, this ISO data is just like the k-means clustering. So randomly, some mean positions will be taken and clusters are formed. ठीक है, जैसे के मींस क्लस्टरिंग में किया गया था बिल्कुल वैसे ही यहाँ पर क्या किया जा रहा है, आप इसमें देखिए क्लस्टर्स मीन, यहाँ पर क्लस्टर्स मीन को निकाला जा रहा है। ये कहां से कहां की रेंज है, आप यहाँ देखिए सबसे पहले एक बॉक्स फॉर्म हो रहा है, किस बेसिस पर ये बॉक्स बन रहा है, यहाँ पर किस बेसिस पर ये बॉक्स यहाँ पर फॉर्म हो रहा है, ये बॉक्स फॉर्म हो रहा है मीन और स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशंस के बेसिस पर। बेसिकली इट्स अबाउट स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन। उसके बाद में इस रेंज में जैसे सपोज 5 यहाँ पर बनने हैं तो 5 यहाँ पर वैल्यूज ले ली गई, पोजीशंस ले लिए गए, और जैसे के मींस क्लस्टरिंग में होता है मिनिमम डिस्टेंस टू मीन क्लासिफिकेशन किया जाता है, उसी तरीके से यहाँ पर मीन के साथ में जिसको मिनिमम डिस्टेंस होगा उस बेसिस पर यहाँ इस तरीके से क्लस्टर्स फॉर्म हो गए। यहाँ पर एक चीज एडिशनल हो रही है। एडिशनल क्या है, यहाँ क्लस्टर्स को लेकर के कुछ रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस दिए गए जो पहले नहीं थे। कॉम्पैक्टनेस को लेकर के दिया गया, ठीक है, दूसरा चीज सेपरेबिलिटी को लेकर के दिया गया। कैसे ये सारी चीजें इंप्लीमेंट करी जाती हैं उसके अलग अलग कंडीशंस दिए गए कि सबसे पहले जब क्लस्टर्स फॉर्म होते हैं तो क्लस्टर्स का जो कॉम्पैक्टनेस है वो चेक होता है। कॉम्पैक्टनेस हम कैसे चेक करेंगे, स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन के बेसिस पर चेक करेंगे। अगर जो भी थ्रेशोल्ड पर हमने स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन डिसाइड किया है या बाय डिफॉल्ट जो ले लिया जा रहा है, अगर स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन के लिमिटेशन के अंदर है तब हम उससे कॉम्पैक्ट मान करके कुछ नहीं करेंगे। लेकिन अगर स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन से ज्यादा है, लाइक सपोज क्लस्टर 4 का जो यहाँ पर पिक्सल्स जो हैं, ठीक है, ये स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन से ज्यादा हो रहे हैं, तो हम क्या करेंगे, इस क्लस्टर को स्प्लिट कर देंगे, ठीक है, ब्रेक कर देंगे। दूसरा चीज, यहाँ पर सेपरेबिलिटी को देखा जाता है, मीन्स के बीच में डिस्टेंस देखा जाता है। अगर क्लस्टर्स के बीच के मीन्स का जो डिस्टेंस है वो बहुत कम है, अगेन थ्रेशोल्ड से कम है, तो क्या किया जाएगा, मर्ज कर दिया जाएगा। अगर वेरिएशन किसी क्लस्टर में ज्यादा है, वेरिएशन कैसे चेक करेंगे, स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन अगर थ्रेशोल्ड से ज्यादा आ रहा है किसी क्लस्टर का, तो उसे स्प्लिट कर देंगे, उसको ब्रेक कर देंगे, वहां एक नहीं बल्कि 2 क्लासेस होंगी, इसका मतलब है। अगला चीज क्या बता रहे हैं कि अगर क्लस्टर्स के बीच में, सपोज किन्हीं 2 क्लस्टर्स के बीच की दूरी बहुत कम है, उनके मीन्स का डिस्टेंस, मीन्स के बीच का डिस्टेंस बहुत कम है, तो क्या करेंगे, यानी कि वो क्लस्टर्स जो हैं, 2 क्लस्टर, वो बेसिकली एक ही क्लास को दिखा रहे हैं, और उस केस में हम मर्ज कर देंगे, दोनों को मिला देंगे। एक और चीज चेक करेंगे, क्लस्टर में कितने पिक्सल फॉल हो रहे हैं। अगर बहुत ज्यादा, अगर थ्रेशोल्ड से कम पिक्सल्स फॉल हो रहे होंगे, तो क्या करेंगे, हम उसको डिलीट कर देंगे, उसको रिमूव कर देंगे क्लस्टर को। तो इस तरीके से यहाँ पर इस तरीके का रूल लगाते हुए फिर से कंप्यूट किया जाता है, और ये बार बार इसी तरीके से इसको कैलकुलेट किया जाता है, जैसे आप यहाँ पर देख रहे हैं। कब तक किया जाता है, अगेन या तो नंबर ऑफ आइट्रेशन बोल दिए जाते हैं, जैसे अभी आपने देखा था जब हमने अडास पर एग्जीक्यूट किया गया करा था, तो नंबर ऑफ आइट्रेशन वहां पर 6 था। साथ ही साथ वहां पर एक कन्वर्जेंस वैल्यू भी देती जाती है, तो कितना कन्वर्ज हो रहा है उसके बेसिस पर भी हम लोग चेक करते हैं कि कब वहां पर जाकर के स्टॉप होना है। तो इस तरीके से ये आईएसओ डेटा जो यहाँ पर ये पूरा डिटेल है, देखिए इसको ध्यान से पढ़िए, अपने एंड से पढ़िए ये। So this algorithm permits the number of clusters to change from one iteration to the next by merging, splitting and deleting the cluster. आगे का ये डिटेल अपने से पढ़िए तो ये आपको क्लियर होगा।
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, in third point, it is given that the pixel clusters are deleted if it contains fewer than the specified minimum number of pixels. That means, there will be a predefined number of pixels to be contained by a cluster?
Yeah, usually everything is predefined. Whatever they are saying, even in the first one, they are talking about the minimum distance between the mean. Okay. So if
Yes,
the distance between 2 cluster is less than some predefined minimum distance, so it is given in the second one where they are talking about the standard deviation. Again, usually it is predefined. Although if you see when I was executing the thing in the ADAS software, I was not giving anything. So it is given in some of the software, it is predefined. In some of the software, it will be the user defined. So it varies from software to software, but theoretically, when we talk about the ISO data, these things are user defined, like you will give the distance between what will be the minimum distance, what will be the maximum standard deviation, what will be the minimum number of cluster pixels that should be present inside the cluster. So these things are expected to be given when we are executing this ISO data classification.
okay, ma'am.
Okay, so these are 2 different methods. In the notes, it is given in very short. I have also given you a PDF on ISO data, so all of you work on this, learn about unsupervised classification using the ISO data method. Read this portion. It will give you a very detailed discussion on the ISO data. So a very short detail is given in the notes, but go through this one, this PDF on ISO data, and learn more about the ISO data. Okay. So now our unsupervised classification process is done. Our next topic is about the comparison between the supervised and unsupervised classification. So before starting that topic, I am giving you 10 minutes break. And after the break, we will learn about the difference between the supervised and unsupervised classification. And also we have a quiz today. So the quiz will be from 12:45. Okay. So 10 minutes break. So there is some internet issue at my end. I'm trying to reconnect. Just wait until there is some internet in, yeah. Okay, so am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now we need to compare between the supervised and unsupervised classification. So this is now your task. All of you have learned about the supervised and unsupervised classification. Write down the different characteristics on the basis of which you can make a comparison between both the classification technique. Make a table, first characteristic, then in the next column supervised classification, in the next column unsupervised classification. Quickly think about whatever you have learned about the supervised classification and unsupervised classification. Then based upon that one, make the differentiation among all between both the techniques. So let's see the difference between both of them. First one is extensive prior knowledge of the region. Okay. When we go for the supervised classification, there is a need of an extensive prior knowledge of the region. Why? Because we need to give the training samples. We need to be very well aware about them, that what type means which classes exist over there and where they are located. We need to give the sample of them. So there is a lot of prior knowledge is needed in supervised classification, whereas in unsupervised classification, Limited prior knowledge is required. Why? Because we just need to give the number of classes and thereafter we need to match the identified cluster with the existing LULC class. Okay. So yes, in both the cases, some knowledge of the study area is required, but in supervised classification, it is very, very detailed knowledge requirement because of the training stage. In unsupervised classification, limited knowledge of the area is required. Why? Because of the labeling phase. We need to label the things. We need to interpret what is the meaning of this class. Therefore, the knowledge is needed of the region. Next, chances of human error. Okay, so among or between supervised and unsupervised classification, which will have more chances of human error?
Supervised classification.
Why?
Because ma'am, in supervised classification, the user give the training samples, and so there is more chances of human error in supervised classification technique.
Yeah. So in supervised classification, in the training stage, we need to give the sample. And you have learned a lot of things about the sampling, that the training sample should be well separated. They must not contain the outliers. They need to be homogeneous in nature. Each sample need to be homogeneous, but all the intra-class variability must be captured by the samples. So there are so many different things that need to be taken care of when we are carrying out the supervised classification. The chances of human error is more in that place. Although in unsupervised classification, it is not free from human error because human intelligence is involved, but just limited intelligence is involved because we need to label the clusters. We need to give the number of classes and thereafter we need to map those classes from the LULC classes. So chances of human error is more in supervised classification. Okay. So to conduct unsupervised classification, the operator may perhaps specify only the number of categories desired. Many of the detailed decisions required for supervised classification are not required for unsupervised classification. So the analyst has less chances of error in unsupervised classification. Next, identification of unique classes. If we compare between both the classification technique, in which classification technique do you think the identification of unique classes are there are more chances of identification of unique classes?
Unsupervised classification.
Why?
Because in that so many classes are developed by itself by the system, and there we have to search for which color it is specifying a particular kind of area for particular kind of land use surfaces. It is specifying, and there can be more number of variations in the color because software is looking at this image from its machine perspective, not by any training purpose.
Yeah, the answer is correct, but the term that you are using, color, is not correct. Okay? Spectral nature. It is spectral nature that you are mentioning. So yes, the answer is unsupervised classification. It will give in the unsupervised classification, basically we write the number of classes. So usually we write down a large number of classes and thereafter we check, we try to match, and on the basis of that, if larger, like suppose if I was doing the, like say, when I was doing this classification of the Prayagraj, and in that case, I have given just only the 5 classes. Instead of 5, I have given suppose 6 or 7 classes. So later on, I can merge them together. Many times what happens, even the analyst does not know that there is some class, some unique type of class exists. When we carry out the supervised classification, we are giving a sample, we are deciding the number of classes and giving the sample of them. So if we are not aware about a class, in that case, it is going to be get missed in supervised classification. In unsupervised classification, since we give large number of classes and based upon the spectral nature, a natural grouping is done over there. So many times a class which was not previously known to the analyst that get identified through unsupervised classification. Okay. So some classes of very small areal extent may remain unrecognized in the process of supervised classification and could inadvertently be incorporated into other classes. This generates error and imprecision throughout the entire classification. This is not a case in unsupervised classification. Step 4 means fourth, mapping of spectral classes to labels. Okay, which classification has this responsibility, mapping of spectral classes to labels?
Supervised classification.
Supervised classification?
मैम लेबलिंग तो करते हैं ना क्लासेस को लेबल.
Anyone else?
Ma'am, unsupervised labeling is already done by the system.
In supervised classification, in the training stage, we give the sample, we give the class name over there. Therefore, there is no responsibility of mapping of spectral classes to the label. This occurs in the unsupervised classification. Why? Because the classes are created. Whatever number you are giving to the software, the natural grouping is done on the basis of that number. And thereafter, you have to map those spectral classes to a particular LULC class. So this is the responsibility of unsupervised classification, in unsupervised classification, not in the supervised classification. So when you carry out the supervised classification, the things is, no, the classes are already labeled over there. So this is what it is given over here. Unsupervised classification identifies spectrally homogeneous classes within the data that do not necessarily correspond to informational categories that are of interest to the analyst. As a result, the analyst is faced with the problem of matching spectral classes generated by the classification to the classes that are required by the ultimate user of the information. In supervised classification, there is simple one-to-one correspondence between two sets of classes. The analyst using supervised classification does not face the problem of matching spectral categories on the final map with the informational categories of interest. Next, control over number of classes and their specific identities. What is the meaning of this thing? Control over the number of classes. When we carry out the supervised classification, sorry, when we carry out the supervised classification, we have a control on the number of classes. Why? Because we are giving a training according to that one. In unsupervised classification, we do not have that control. What does this mean? Like suppose in some study area, there is vegetation, there is an built up, there is an open land. Okay. Along with some of the portion of the open land which has some concrete area like that. So there is a chance that when you are doing a supervised classification, you will give just three categories. First one is built up area. Second one is the open land, and third one is the vegetation. Now, when you are doing unsupervised classification and over there also you are giving just only three classes, there is a chance that some portion is getting categorized as vegetation because it is completely different. The built up part may get mixed with the open land, or the built up land may get mixed with some other class, and a new class got generated as the third one. We do not have a control on that thing. That is why when we carry out the change detection, when we compare the images of two different years, instead of going for unsupervised classification, we prefer unsupervised classification. Okay, because it gives us a set of classes over there. That variation cannot take place that in 1 year, like in 1990, there are 6 classes. In 2010, it was say 7 classes. Although there might be some changes, but when we carry out the change and we compare on a class by class basis, it creates problem. So that is what it is given over here. That in supervised classification, the analyst has control on the number of classes. This quality becomes important if it is required to generate a classification for the specific purpose of comparison with other classification of the same area at different date. Under such circumstances, the unpredictable, that is with respect to the number, identity, size and pattern, qualities of categories generated by unsupervised classification may be inconvenient or unsuitable. So this is all about the comparison between both the classification techniques, supervised and unsupervised. In both the techniques, the final output is a thematic map, and that theme is land use, land cover. Okay, whether you are using supervised, whether you are using unsupervised, in both the technique we are getting that output. But there is a difference in the way the classification method proceeds. Depending upon our requirement, we can select among the supervised and unsupervised classification. But usually what happens that, if you have a very familiar terrain, in that case, supervised classification is okay. When we do not know about the terrain very well, we make a hybrid thing. Okay, means how we do that thing practically, it's not about theory. Like first we carry out the unsupervised classification, try to identify the different classes that exist over there. And thereafter, once we've done that supervised classification, take the idea of different LULC that are present over there. After that, we carry out the supervised classification. So this thing also happens. So depending what type of things are present over there, how much we are familiar, how much it is easier to give the samples of that one, we go for the supervised or unsupervised. But in general, supervised methods are preferred. Now, the next topic is classification of mixed pixel. What is the meaning of mixed pixel? We have learned about the mixed pixel in the starting of the classification topic.
Hybrid pixel, ma'am.
What is the meaning of that one?
Ma'am, the pixel which will lie or between the two transition between two land cover.
Okay. Anything else?
Due to averaging of 2 pixels, we generate a new pixel which causes a hybrid pixel.
No. Mixed pixel means it is not a hybrid pixel. Basically what happens that like suppose you are taking a Landsat data and it is of 30-meter resolution. So if you see a 30 cross 30 means 900 square meter area is covered by a single pixel. So it is a large area, and it is not necessary that there will be a single LULC that is present over there. There may be some road, there may be some concrete area, there may be some grass, some soil over there. So different LULCs are present over there, land use, land covers are present over there. That's why they are saying the mixed pixel. And this one is a more prominent thing when we have a coarser resolution images. Like suppose if we have some pixel with 100, like if we have a modest data, then this problem is more prominent over there. Why? Because of the large pixel size. If we go for a higher resolution, like if you see compare between the Sentinel and Landsat data, obviously the Sentinel will not face the mixed pixel problem, or the pixel will be lesser mixed as compared to Landsat because it will cover an area of just 100 square meter as compared to 900 square meter. Okay, so this is what the mixed pixel is, when a pixel contains more than one land use, land cover. And when we have to carry out the classification of such type of pixel, then we cannot use the regular supervised or unsupervised classification at that place. Isn't it? Because when we talk about the land use land cover, when we talk about the supervised classification or unsupervised classification, we consider it as a single, or classes are considered to be pure. They do not do not have a mixture of elements over there. Like if we take vegetation, then it is only vegetation, it is only built up, it is only water, it is not a combination of different things over there. So that's why we cannot use the regular supervised classification or whatever techniques that we have learned of classification till now. We cannot use them over here. For the mixed pixel analysis, there are special classification techniques like spectral mixture analysis, fuzzy classification that are very useful over here. So among these, we will learn about the spectral mixture analysis in this section. So if you remember the hard classification and the soft classification that we have learned over there, also this thing was present. In hard classification, we were saying that only one single category is assigned to a pixel, but when we go for a soft, there will be a membership value which is given, like a pixel will belong to more than one class. So what is mixed pixel as it is given over here? The mixed pixels result when a sensor IFOV includes more than one land cover type or feature on the ground. The extent to which mixed pixels are contained in an image is a function of two things. First one, the spatial resolution of the remote sensing system used to acquire an image. And second one is the spatial scale of the surface land cover class. Isn't it? Both things are important. Like I have discussed the first one, which is the spatial resolution. The second thing is also there, the scale of the surface land cover class. Like, if you consider the streets in the built up area, around you, if you see the street's width is very less. And there are a lot of small things that are present along with that one, that there will be some pavement, then there will be some tree, there will maybe some, soil over there. It depends upon the land use land cover class scale also. Like if you are going into some forested area, it will be completely covered by the trees. In that case, the spatial extent of that land cover class will be large, and this thing also affect the mixed pixel. If something that have a very large extent, it will generate lesser amount of mixed pixel. But if there is something whose extent is very small, like the example that I was giving you, like street, then pavement, then some soil, then some tree, then some house, something like that. So the spatial extent is very small of all these things. So automatically it will generate a lot of mixed pixel. So example is given over here. For example, if a sensor with a narrow field of view is positioned within a few meters of a healthy soybean crop canopy, the sensor's field of view may entirely covered by soybean leaves. A lower resolution operating at higher altitude might focus on the same field, yet have it field of view occupied by a mixture of soybean leaves, bare soil and grass. Same thing. The mixed pixels present a different problem for image classification. Since their spectral characteristics are not representative of any single land cover type, there are two procedures designed to deal with the classification of mixed pixel at subpixel level. First one is the spectral mixture analysis, and second one is the fuzzy classification. Okay, so these are the two different methods through which we can do the analysis. This spectral mixture analysis is not just only done for the mixed pixel over here. It will be covered in the hyperspectral analysis also. In the later units, we will learn about the hyperspectral data. Over there also, this spectral mixture analysis is used. So therefore, I will cover this spectral mixture analysis in the next term because it is already 12:42. So in this section, the spectral mixture analysis is used for the mixed pixel, And later on in the hyperspectral data also it is used for the classification of minerals. Okay. So this is all about the classification. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Any portion that is not clear to you? Okay, then no questions from your side. So, okay, so there will be a SIP quiz today. And on the next Monday, there will be another SIP quiz. And on the coming Thursday, there will be a WebGIS quiz. Tomorrow, there is Shivratri, so there will be holidays. There will be no classes on Tuesday. So we will meet again on Wednesday. And all of the students, make sure to submit your quiz on time. Okay. And there is one question from my side. Is there any other button, like if you have to submit the quiz, you just need to press on the submit, or there is some hand in option also?
Ma'am, only submit button is there.
Okay, because earlier there was some problem that few of the students were not pressing that hand in button.
Ma'am, that is when we are submitting something in PDF form.
Okay, that one for assignment. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay then. So thank you all of you. The class is over for now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome to all.